What's up, everybody, and welcome back to What the Fun, where we review the movies that we want to review. I forgot how to start this thing. My name is Mike, and I am with my co-hosts, Joe and Justin. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing really good, man. I'm excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite stories that I read way too early as a child.
And Justin, how you doing, man?
As much as I agree with Joe, a little too early, long story to read as a youngin', but loved it. And can't wait to get into this story that changed our lives in a way, for sure.
Well, that was an unexpected journey that you guys took when you were kids, apparently. So, hey, listeners, we are reviewing all the Lord of the Rings movies, including the Hobbit trilogy, in anticipation for the new Amazon Prime Lord of the Rings Ring of Power show. And then
Wait, there's a new show coming out?
There is. That's why we're doing this.
I thought it was because we liked J.R.R. Tolkien. Dang.
I mean, we do like this stuff. This is one of our favorite series, so we're really excited to be reviewing it. But at the end of all of our movie reviews, we should be going, as our calendar suggests, and hopefully everything goes according to plan. We will be going straight into reviewing the new Lord of the Rings TV series on Amazon Prime. So we're really excited for that. So stay tuned for everything coming in the future. If you are listening to us on a podcast app of your choice, please leave a review. Spotify, you can leave a 5-star rating on mobile. If you're on Apple, please leave a review. That would really help us out. It is the best way for you guys to communicate how we are doing, and one of the best ways to help us out get into that algorithm. If you're watching us on YouTube, first of all, hi. Secondly, thanks for choosing to watching us there. We do just the video version just so that people have an opportunity to watch that. We're not in it to be YouTubers. We just want to get to 100 subscribers so that we could say, hey, we are at What the Fun show, or What the Fun pod on YouTube. So please hit that subscribe button. We would really appreciate it. A little bit of housekeeping. Test your might if you're listening to this today. We did have an episode a couple days ago, so go check that out. That is our video game debate show. And we are going to try our best to get some Predator reviews in the mix of all of these Lord of the Rings stuff. So we might do the new prequel that is coming out August 5th on Hulu, and then we might review the original, because it is a prequel, so we might just go straight into the original to just kind of wrap a bow on that story. So stay tuned for all of that. If you're on social media, please follow us at What the Fun Pod on all the things. Facebook, Twitter, not Instagram, just Facebook and Twitter. And hey, that's it. You guys, we're going to get into The Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey, which is the first movie of a trilogy. Now, I do even remember back in 2012 when this movie came out, I was like, isn't The Hobbit like 150 pages? How are you going to get a trilogy out of this book? And lo and behold, they did, with a lot of creative freedoms, obviously.
Way too many.
I have not finished the Hobbit book. I'm very close to finishing it, but I do know that there are some instances within this trilogy that are just not even in the book. I know that. So we take some of those things with a grain of salt. I think a lot of them work. I think a lot of them don't work. So, I mean, we'll talk about all of them. So,
yes.
But first, we're going to get into An Unexpected Journey, which again is the first of this trilogy. It is directed by the original director for the original trilogy, Peter Jackson. He does reprise his role. Obviously, it is based on The Hobbit, and it is starring Ian McKellen, Martin Freeman, who I believe is a very good cast for Bilbo, Richard Armitage, James Nesbitt, Ken Stott, and some others, including Elijah Wood, Christopher Lee, and Andy Serkis. This came out in 2012, and it has a runtime of 169 minutes, unless you're watching the extended edition, which we all did, I'm pretty sure, for this review.
Oh, yeah.
Had a budget of $200 to $315 million, and it had a box office of $1.017 billion. Justin, I'm going to go your way first because I've been talking a lot. Spoiler-free review. What you got on The Unexpected Journey?
Well, the first part of this story that I grew up reading I feel like the film adaptation was excellent. I think it was good. I enjoyed it. It's a fun ride. There's action in it. There's little Lord of the Ring-esque elements that I nostalgia my way back to the original trilogy. And I feel like they did a fairly good job throughout the film with cinematography and music to tie all the story together. And the first part is no short thing to hit, because that's really the beginning of Bilbo and what story you have going forward into the original trilogy. So I think that it was excellent. I think it's a good film, and I can't wait to get into that spoiler section.
Joe, you are somewhat famous around these parts for your spoiler-free reviews. Let's hear it.
Are we ready? All right. So we've got The Hobbit, which if you read the book, this is obviously, just an old trick for you. But if you haven't read the book and you haven't seen the movie, but you want to, my spoiler-free review is the first one's good. Go watch it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Spoilers.
I'm looking forward to your spoiler-free review for the second.
It will be less forgiving.
Okay. I do concur with Joe. I think that the first one of this trilogy is actually really good. I think that it was a very good start to bringing us back into the world of the Lord of the Rings. And just like we've already stated, Martin Freeman does a phenomenal job as Bilbo. I also think that this just kind of climbs the ranks for me, at least this first movie, just because we have more of Ian McKellen's Gandalf. And I really, really enjoy his presence throughout this whole trilogy. It's super awesome. He is super amazing. And so this first movie, I think I sent you guys a message a while ago about it. I said, when I was watching it, I said, whatever we want to say about the Hobbit trilogy, there's fun moments and the music is killer. Like, we might have definitely some criticisms for this movie trilogy, because we love the Lord of the Rings, and when you get especially to that third movie, there's a lot of things that fall short. But at the end of the day, this is more Lord of the Rings. This is a lot of fun, really good music, really good acting, and just an overall fun time. So that's my spoiler-free review. And let's get into it. So if you have not seen The Unexpected Journey, please pause the podcast right now. Go ahead and watch it, because this is your official spoiler warning. Hey, you.
What's that? What the?
What are you doing?
Who, me?
Do you want to be spoiled? No? Well then,
Stop it. Get some help.
so you don't feel like this guy. Instead, let it be a surprise.
Oh, I like surprises.
So go watch the thing before you move on in the podcast, okay?
Alrighty then.
Okay, let's get into it. So, the plot here. Approaching his 111th birthday, the Hobbit Bilbo Baggins begins writing down the full story of his adventure 60 years earlier for the benefit of his nephew. So, kind of familiar sights here to start off this movie, because, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this basically right before Fellowship of the Ring?
Yeah. So when Frodo walks out the door at the end of that first scene, that's him going out to meet Gandalf in the woods, as Gandalf is quote unquote late to Bilbo's 111st birthday.
Yeah.
Which is the opening scenes of Fellowship.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And yeah,
I'm a nerd.
Actually having read the Fellowship of the Ring, I haven't read the full trilogy. It took me a long time to get into Fellowship of the Ring. That's another discussion that I've had many times with Joe. But
It's so good.
watching this opening scene was just like super funny, because now I know the relationships that they, that the Baggins have with like their fellow hobbits. And so like him running around, like just talking bad about his relatives, like, oh, she's just a witch. Like, that type
Oh yeah, the Tooks and the Proudfoots.
yeah,
Precautions.
And Yeah, and that is certainly blown up in the books, that you just get this bigger sense that he doesn't like some of his relatives.
Any of them.
Yeah, any of them. Yeah. But
Except
Justin,
Frodo.
he likes Frodo.
His nephew.
But Justin, this is just an awesome opening scene, right? To just kind of get us into the mood of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the original trilogy, which we'll get to, spoiler here, opens with kind of a flashback, and this does a similar-esque thing, where he begins to write the story. And I believe it's the exact quote from the beginning of the book, and he starts reading about, a hobbit lived in a hole, not a hole that's dirty or with worms, but it's a home. I felt like this was a great way of them to start that story. And also, the flashback with we'll get to, is the original Smaug story with the Lonely Mountain, which is really cool. So I felt like this was a great way to make us feel at home with the original trilogy that we grew up with.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right. Long before Bilbo's involvement, the dwarf king Thror brought an era of prosperity for his kin under the Lonely Mountain until the arrival of the dragon Smaug. Destroying the nearby town of Dale, Smaug drove the dwarves out of their mountain and took their hoard of gold. Thror's grandson, Thorin, sees King Thranduil and his wood elves on a nearby hillside and is dismayed when they leave rather than aid his people, resulting in Thorin's everlasting hatred of elves. So yeah, this kind of gives us an idea of the story going forward. A stinking dragon took over their gold, and they kind of want it back. I mean, we'll get to this in the second movie, but obviously their main mission is not necessarily the gold. It is just to get their home back from Smaug. There's a little wrinkle into that comes in play in the second movie, but this was a great battle. There were orcs involved. There was a dragon involved. All of it. Joe?
Just talk about the cinematography with that, though. Like, the fact you
Justin.
see, like, you see the city, like, from overhead, and then you see the shadow of the dragon, something similar in Star Wars, really. And then you see, like, people flying kites, and everyone's happy, and the dwarves are doing their stuff, and then they just see this impending doom coming towards them, and they start freaking out. And all the action is set, and you see flames before you even see a dragon. It's like this creeping towards you. You know it's a dragon, but you don't get to see that until a big reveal. Go ahead, Joe. I want you to continue with that. I just loved it for cinematography right there.
Before we move too far ahead, we know how Mike says the dragon's name. Justin, can you say the dragon's name for me real quick?
Smaug.
Smaug, all right. I'm a Smaug guy. S-M-A-U-G.
Smaug?
Smaug. And that was
it's
just...
like sauna.
Yes, a sauna. A Smaug. So it's fun for me when I hear other people say his name. I'm like,
Was I saying Smog?
Smaug.
Yeah.
Smaug. I just have like a small aug. It's there, but
You got that southern drawl.
Smaug. Yeah, I was when I was reading it, it was because I read it at a really young age. I knew that AU was a ow sound, like laugh and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, it's Smaug. And I was like, I think I was 10 when I read the book. Yeah, impressionable, like I said, a little too young. But no, for the opening scene, yeah. So yeah, Thror being king under the mountain, losing the home, getting a little too greedy, delving for gold, and he almost like it parallels the Moria story, except for in Moria they encounter a Balrog. This is the earlier version of that where they get a Smaug instead. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great way to open it.
Balrog?
A Balrog?
A Balrog?
A demon, fire from the depths.
Just
All right.
But
Let's get
no,
back
I
on.
really,
You shall
I
not
really
pass
enjoyed
that.
it.
Go back to the normal story.
I really enjoyed the opening. I love that they gave us an intro to basically the story beforehand, before the journey begins. They give us a little hey, here's kind of what happened, understand why they're doing it, and now we're gonna move into the story itself. And it was like a 5-10 minute intro, quote unquote intro, to let us know what was going on. So I think that was it was really well done. Obviously the cinematography and everything. If it's a Peter Jackson film, that's kind of what you expect, right? Like we know, we all saw Lord of the Rings films, like we kind of knew where he set his own bar at. So I think he definitely held the bar. I don't think he raised it with The Hobbit, unfortunately, but he definitely kept that same bar, specifically for the first film. And then the score, I mean, we get unexpected or concerning hobbits and stuff like that. Some of the original songs.
Howard Shore returns to
so
these movies. So
we're getting the similar to some of them are the same exact tracks, but other ones are new fun things that we get.
Certainly same exact tracks, but they do add. He does play it a little bit because I feel like you have a Frodo theme, and then you have a Bilbo theme because you can tell the slight differences that they make, but it is basically the same tune throughout. The music in this in general is just amazing. It's just amazing.
Howard Shore's unreal.
So, yeah. All right, so in the Shire, 50-year-old Bilbo is tricked by the wizard Gandalf the Grey into hosting a dinner for Thorin and his company of dwarves. All right, you ready? Balin, Dwalin, Fili, Kili, Dori, Nori, Ori, Oin, Gloin, Biffer, Bofer, and Bumber.
And Bilbo.
I did it.
And?
I don't know. That's all I have.
And Thorin.
Yeah, Thorin was at the start of that sentence.
Was he?
Yeah, Thorin and his
into hosting
company.
a dinner for Thorin and his company of dwarves.
Yeah.
I was like, he wasn't part of that list that you just said. Okay.
But anyway, this might be some of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
Really?
I'll just put it out. Just some of them.
The dinner scene. Yeah.
Just the dinner scene, and just Martin Freeman does a phenomenal job just being annoyed the crap out of, and it
and
really
also still
works.
being a good host.
Yeah,
he's being a great host who hates that he's having to host it.
Right?
Why the F are you in my house? Who are you strangers? Why are there dwarves in my kitchen eating all of my food?
Yeah, I
also,
love
can I get you some more?
Yeah, I love the line where he says, my storeroom has been pillaged. I love that line.
And it's accurate.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And
So
it is
accurate.
There is literally nothing after these dwarves.
Yeah, except the blue cheese
get a
that's on the
hold.
ground. But
The moldy blue cheese. They didn't like that one. This one's gone bad.
It's moldy. Which, this is kind of just the start of just the hijinks and the shenanigans that the dwarves just create and get into. But Gandalf did have a motive for forcing Bilbo to host this party, because Gandalf's aim is to recruit Bilbo as the company's burglar to aid them in their quest to enter the Lonely Mountain. And so just kind of pushing a little bit further into the movie, they need a burglar because they need to get around Smaug, and they need to get the Arkenstone, which is something that we'll learn about later. But dwarves are clumsy, and Gandalf is saying that hobbits are not. They are quiet, and even though Bilbo has no experience being a burglar, they're wanting him on this journey, or at least Gandalf is.
Gandalf is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair, because the dwarves definitely had reservations, especially in this first one.
yeah,
The first film's basically all reservations at who is this tiny little humanoid thing.
Really, until the end.
Yeah, and why in the world would you invite him on this journey? He's unskilled. He's unaware of what he's being asked to do. He has no sense whatsoever of danger or adventure or outside of the Shire. So it's all a big steep learning curve for Bilbo, unfortunately. But he proves himself, right? He steps up to the occasion almost every time.
Yeah. One of the things that Bilbo says is, I hate adventures, or adventures aren't good because they make you late for supper. And I was okay, yep, that tells the whole story right there.
We all know hobbits like their first, second, and third supper, so can't be late for those. But this is also one of my favorite scenes because of Gandalf specifically. Like, I don't know if you just caught on it, but like Ian McClellan's comedic timing in these scenes, his serious tones that he needs to take with both the dwarves and Bilbo, they're just nigh on perfect. I mean, Ian McClellan does a fantastic job. I don't think we could have asked for a better Gandalf.
Mhm.
I really don't.
Nah, probably not.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of a person who would have played him better. And granted, that's because that we have all, literally decades now of him playing Gandalf. It's kind of hard to disassociate him from that role.
True.
But thinking of anyone else, like, I don't know if they could pull off that same thing. They tried it with, I'm going to go to Harry Potter here, but they tried it with Dumbledore. They literally had to cast him twice because the first gentleman passed away. And it worked okay because the first 2 years you have the nice, caring Dumbledore who's supposed to, be that grandfather father figure, and then they have like the powerful, more scary Dumbledore. And with Ian McClellan, you got the perfect mix of both of those things. He's genial and nice and just caring. He really cares about Bilbo. He honestly cares about like him as a person first, and then when needed, he can push him. He can push the Hobbit. He can push the dwarves. He can be that commanding presence that he needs to be when he has to be. But for the most part, he's a wizard who's gonna sit on your porch and smoke tobacco,
Smoke a pipe with you.
smoke a pipe, and blow
Yeah.
clipper ships.
Yeah, for sure.
And make fireworks too.
Yes.
Great
That's all,
fireworks.
and that was funny about it too, is because like even the opening scene of back where 50-year-old Bilbo is just sitting there smoking a pipe. He's like, "Oh, Gandalf, you're the one that made the fancy fireworks." Like, he doesn't even remember him.
Nope.
And yet Gandalf is trying to make him join this incredible and dangerous journey. So unexpected, one might say. Bilbo races to join the company after not accepting at first. He was very weary about it. The next day, he does have a change of heart, and so he races to join the company, and traveling onward, the company is captured by 3 trolls. Bilbo stalls the trolls from eating them until dawn, and Gandalf exposes the trolls to sunlight, turning them to stone. So Gandalf goes away. He kind of has this like separate mission that he needs to take care of first, and then he does come back in time, kind of that superhero moment where Bilbo and all the dwarves were about to get eaten. And yeah.
I think this is where it kind of diverges from the story a little bit here. And I'm going to nitpick. It's been a long time since I've read The Hobbit. But I specifically remember that being a shining moment for Bilbo because Bilbo was the man who was able to distract them long enough for the sun to rise. And in the movie, they really give credit to Gandalf for breaking the stone open and, having this really cool scene, which it was like cool, but it also takes away from Bilbo's ability to reason and talk and distract. And I thought it was a little bit, in my opinion, distasteful. Like it just takes credit away from Bilbo where I think it should have been and put it on Gandalf, making him, we know he's a wizard. What is he powerful enough to break a rock in half? Cool, I guess.
I think it was slightly mixed. I think Gandalf definitely not deserved, but was granted maybe like I would say 60%. But after that scene, they were like, Gandalf even said to the dwarves that like, "Hey, Bilbo stalled," and Bilbo.
Yeah, he had sense enough to distract him.
Yeah,
so
I think going into that scene, Bilbo was trying to play that role of burglar, and he didn't want to hurt them. He wanted to sneak through and save the ponies and the horses, and then all the crap hit the fan, and he had to negotiate his way to buy some time for Gandalf, pretty much. So yeah, I think it's a mix for sure, of credit due.
Yeah, and those trolls were, definitely the Three Stooges. They had some good comedy moments, but the trolls do end up being turned to stone. The company locates the trolls' caves and finds treasure, and specifically elven blades, and that is a key thing because it does does come into factor here a little bit later on, especially in the second movie. But Thorin and Gandalf each take an elf-made blade, Orcust and Glamdring, respectively. Gandalf also finds an elven dagger, which he gives to Bilbo. And what's cool about this elven dagger, Justin, why?
We know it from the original trilogy. It's called Sting, and it is something that will glow blue when orcs are present or nearby. And Elijah Wood's character, Frodo, used it in the original trilogy many times to save his own life. So I feel like this is kind of like a backstory to the blade that we got to know as well, which is really powerful. It's a good moment.
Yeah, especially for back then, blades all had like specific meaning. You know, the name comes in the second film, but at the time, yeah, every good blade sword has a story behind it, and we get to learn where Sting gets its name. We get to learn why it's important. Yeah, I love the story of Sting. I think it's a very awesome thing. I'm glad they included it because I don't think most books would. They don't really care. They kind of give us a little bit about Aragorn's sword and Lord of the Rings, but yeah, Sting holds a place special in my heart.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, the wizard Radagast the Brown finds Gandalf. I just love how Ian McClellan says that name. I'm a Ian McClellan stan, apparently. Finds Gandalf and the company because he recounts an encounter at Dol Guldur with the Necromancer, a sorcerer who has been corrupting Greenwood with dark magic. So Radagast has this whole scene where he's trying to save one of his little buddies. You know, he has a little hedgehog that he's trying to save, little old Sonic there, and he's just trying to save him, but he can't because there's just some dark magic. And then, you know, he does eventually conjure up a potion that he is able to get that dark magic out of Sonic, but, you know, he's just trying to figure out what is going on with his forest. And I just love that all these wizards can have communication with, animals alike. And Joe, what do you think of Radagast the Brown with his, poop stains on his head?
I did not like this edition.
Oh, no.
I didn't like the scene. I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't enjoy any of it, unfortunately. I thought it was a distraction from the better story, which is, I mean, I understand why they did it for film sake, but for me, as I was watching it, I remember thinking, okay, I guess like this has nothing to do with the story that we're talking about. It felt like they were trying to give us more about like the darkness and Sauron coming back and stuff like that. But
spoilers.
What are you talking about?
You just spoiled that Sauron's coming back.
He is the darkness.
On the
Everyone
other,
knows that.
on the other side of the
now.
coin, I enjoyed this. A lot of fans were looking into the original trilogy and saying, where are the other wizards? You know, you get Saruman, you get a few wizards there, but you don't get, wizards that are good around the world, really, in the original trilogy. So this is giving, basically, Gandalf lists them off. These are the wizards that are around, and this is our intro into the one that seems to be in touch with nature. And I think that the characters and the animals, I'm sure for the younger audience, it struck a chord to see all these animals hurt. And I think the hedgehog's name was like Samuel or something, I think. So it was close to Sonic, but I don't think it was Sonic. But
I was making jokes,
I think that in a fashion the same, I think Radagast ran really fast and tried to save everything. And, and he ended up saving this hedgehog. And it's just a little kind of nod to what's to come, for sure. And things that we know, this is going to happen, because we've seen the original trilogy. It's kind of just like setting the foundation for more to come and the evil of the world taking over. So yeah. I liked it. And I think it was a good character development for this one, character to come back and try to save them later on to show his good side as well. So I feel like it was well deserved.
I'll kind of be in the middle of you two. I think I agree with Joe that the addition of Radagast was kind of unnecessary, especially when you consider the sort of epic round table that we'll see in a little bit, with some of the returning characters from the original trilogy that we love and like. But I also think that I think it was a fun and unique way to introduce the sort of villain, the overarching villain of the trilogy. And so I think that it was a good conduit in a sense to do that. But I do agree with Joe. Gandalf would have figured it out eventually, just like the book, and stuff like that. So, but regardless, after all of this happens, they are chased by orcs. Gandalf leads the company through a hidden passage to Rivendell. Oh, we know that place.
Where's that again? No.
It's in Middle-earth. There, Lord Elrond discloses a hidden indication of a secret door on the company's map of the Lonely Mountain, which will be visible only on Durin's Day. Gandalf later approaches the White Council. This is what I was hinting at earlier, which does consist of Elrond, Galadriel, and Sauron the White. Played by none other than Christopher Lee, who does reprise his role here. Honestly, this is a really cool scene. Just like Gandalf, kind of going toe to toe with Saruman, being like, "Yo, you're off your rocker." If you, I mean, I'm pretty sure you're working with the bad dudes. I could sense it here. It's plain as day here. Joe,
I don't think he knew it yet.
The Knights at the Round Table. Did you like this scene?
I did, yeah, and I'm a fan. Obviously, Galadriel and Elrond are the two oldest elven. You have the other one as well, the Wood Elf King, but out of the elven lords, those are the three baddies, and we get to meet all of them. We don't get to meet, I don't remember, the Thranduil, something like that. I think that's the other one. But the Wood Elves King, he's not in the scene. But Galadriel, she comes back. We know her if we've seen Lord of the Rings. And this one you get to see a little bit more. In Lord of the Rings, she takes on that scary, creepy, elven witch, sees the future role. In this one, we don't have that same role. We kind of just see her as another figure, which I think is nice. At least it was for me. Elrond seems to be oldest and wisest of all the elves. I love Agent Smith as Elrond. He's so good.
I was just about to bring that up. Mr. Anderson, Mr. Gandalf.
Yeah, the council's great. The fact that Gandalf kind of shows that he may be lower ranked than the rest of these guys, but he's willing to stand up to them and share his point, share his view, and express the fact that he's willing to go to battle with and for this journey and this reason and this trip, this task, this journey, whatever you want to call it. He shows that he's in it 100%. There's a good reason behind it, and the fact that he stands up for it is really cool. I mean, it shows a lot about who he is and what his character is like.
Man, Justin, he was there to present a Morgul blade, which was a weapon of the Witch King of Angmar, which Radagast actually got from visiting Dol Guldur, that the necromancer was there. And what did you think of Gandalf's attempt to convince Sauron the White?
This was the foreshadowing, because if you've seen the original, Saruman is not too nice and not too on the good side of the force of the world of Middle Earth. I feel like Saruman discredits Gandalf
at least,
in so many ways.
Christopher Lee's consistent.
yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah. So I feel like
Dooku.
He discredits Gandalf in so many different ways during the scene. From the, if they would have come to me with this task, I would have simply said no and saved them the trouble. If this is a blade, there's no such thing as a necromancer. This is just a human man messing with the dark arts. Dark arts, now I'm in Harry Potter. The dark magic. I feel like this is a much better scene. I know this Knights of the Round Table is much better for me than the Knights of the Messy Table scenes before. I feel like this scene here was.
Oh, don't
great.
worry. In the midst of this console scene, there was a lot of messy tables.
Yeah. I did not like that dinner scene that much from the previous scene, but this one
I loved it.
was very good. I felt like even before this, when Thorin was debating in himself to even show the map because he wanted to keep it secret, he wanted to keep it safe. I feel like he really was trying to take this task on himself and not trust the elves because of his past history with them. He hates them, really. He doesn't trust them. And this was a good scene to see all of the big names, the big leagues, in one place and see how they hold up to the task at hand. Definitely cool. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and like
Morgul Blade, round 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Frodo was stabbed with.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just interesting. You brought up a couple points there, Justin. First of all, how do you not like dwarves like throwing around dishes and cleaning? Come on.
This is the elven city of Rivendell. You do not do that. You're given food. You do not make a mess in someone's house.
They weren't doing that, and we're talking about dwarves here.
You know how much work it takes to clean those white pillars?
But that is why this was so funny, because like you just had elves like completely disgusted throughout the whole time that they're there. Like, how long are they going to be here? Like, it's just pure comedy at some points, and I really enjoy it. But also like, it is clear, and you get kind of this foreshadow, especially coming from the Lord of the Rings, that, Saruman the White is definitely knowledgeable of this necromancer, and he's just trying to kind of sway them to go a different way. And, as Joe already alluded to earlier, this was the key indicator that Sauron is coming back. He is the big bad of the Lord of the Rings. Like, that this is a prequel to that trilogy, and so obviously he's going to be mentioned. He's going to be the leader of the orcs, all these people, and their dark side. So yeah.
Add
Joe.
one thing real quick. For those who are listening who have read the Silmarillion, they're going to understand that Sauron is actually not the biggest bad. He's the second biggest bad. So just so they understand that. I get it. But for these stories, he's the big bad.
We're talking the movies.
That's the hidden fact for the real fans.
Yeah, there's gonna be the nerds out there like me who read the encyclopedia that belongs to this, whole mythos, and they'll appreciate it.
Oh yeah,
Sauron,
Okay.
number 2 baddie.
So, another cool aspect to this kind of like Knights of the Round Table thing is that Galadriel was communicating with Gandalf, through their telepathically through their minds. Yeah. And so while Saruman presses concern to the more present matter of the dwarves' quest, requesting that Gandalf put an end to it, Gandalf secretly reveals to Galadriel he had anticipated this and had the dwarves move forward without him. So Gandalf, again, like Ian McClellan, like his face and his just acting here is so good, because Galadriel's like, you knew that they were leaving, and he goes, I don't know, like, but he clearly does. I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, So, anyway, the company journeys into the Misty Mountains. Oh, and by the way, like throughout that whole Rivendell scene, you have like sprinkled in like Bilbo looking at the sword that would be forged again for the king, Aragorn. There we go.
Isildur's sword that was broken.
Yeah, you see that. You see what's his name? You see Elrond like actually look at the elven blades and be like, yeah, it's okay that you guys have these, like that sort of thing, which is really cool too.
And that was true to the story. Like that's true to the book.
Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of
about it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool just to kind of have this foundation laid that like Thorne is starting to trust these elves, but he knows that the wood elves from the second movie, he knows that those are the bad guys. So, according to him. So we'll quote unquote bad guys, but we'll get to that in the second movie. So moving forward, the company journeys into the Misty Mountains, where they find themselves in a colossal battle between stone giants. This was an awesome scene. I loved this. This was like Pacific Rim, but with I'm trying to say rock giants. There we go. That's what I wanted to say. Like huge boulder. Like this was awesome.
It lived up to what I imagined when I read it as a kid. And I was really happy about that, because there's not a lot of stuff in film that can live up to, your imagination, especially as a kid reading these books. The mountains were fighting each other. Is kind of how it's described in the books. And you're like, well, how do they show that? Like, and they did such a good job.
And I just like, thanks to Justin, I have the 4K version of this, and just like watching this on my big screen, like new television, like it was awesome. Justin, what do you think about this scene?
I think that Misty Mountains is an area that we've been to before, and I felt like, sure, something's going to go wrong. It always does at the Misty Mountains, right? So I think it picked up rather quickly to the scale wise. So you've got these people just going across the mountains, and some stuff's happening, the weather's hitting them, and then all of a sudden you see what's going on, and it's just like huge, this huge battle that's just massive taking place with them just in the middle. And I felt like that was a good way to foreshadow the entire story of Lord of the Rings. Is you've got these characters stuck in the middle that don't want to be in the middle, but they're stuck there trying to survive. And I think it was a great way to show that on a big scale version.
Yeah, it looks really cool. Like, I'm a 90s kid, so I come from the era of like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, where you just have these big things like fighting each other. I loved Godzilla growing up. Pacific Rim is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like all these like kaiju stuff, like big things just fighting. And what, Justin, you pride yourself in like knowing and talking about cinematography. I thought the cinematography was flawless in this scene. Just like, just seeing these huge mountains battle each other in such a awesome and unique way. Because like in the book, as you were talking about, Joe, like when you just read the sentence mountains fighting each other, it just can mean like maybe you could kind of imagine that whichever way you want. And I really think that they personified this really well for us. If you allow me to use that term. Okay. But Justin, as you already said, things hit the fan in the Misty Mountains. And so they take refuge in this cave, but lo and behold, the cave has a hole in it, and it is actually a trap for goblins. The goblins who take them to their leader, the Great Goblin. This is where this movie loses me.
Is it? Okay.
I'm okay with like the Goblin King being like cartoony, but it was almost over the top for me.
Okay, I can see that. It's kind of a throwback to the days of old, like old lore when kings were the fat gluttonous type because they sat and they got the first pick of everything. Yeah. That's kind of the same thing we get here with the Goblin King. He's grotesquely large. He's got the big dangly chin thing. I wasn't put off by it, but I can definitely see how it could be a little over the top, cartoonish kind of. I can see that, but it didn't lose me there.
The songs that he was singing and stuff like that was just a little corny to me. Like
it's in the books.
I know it's in the book, but like just whoever voiced the Goblin King and sang those, like, or the Great Goblin, like it just felt out of place in this like big old journey. It just felt a little out of place for me. Justin, the Great Goblin.
For me, I'm going to take the middle this time. I feel like this was yes, it's from the books. Yes, I remember reading. I think it was great to see it on the big screen. I think it was well set. I think the action was great. It was a little comical, which was okay. But at the same time, it made me feel like we were in Moana with the evil character Crab singing about shinies. I felt like
It's like my favorite song of that movie.
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, but I don't want
good.
that. I don't want that in Lord of the Rings. Really, I don't want that. That comical animation throughout the epic storytelling that Lord of the Rings is. I feel like it's good in short bursts, and I think that's why I think this film's okay for me, pretty good, because there's music and singing in it, but it's very limited, and then you get a lot of action in between.
Well, and then, like there was this sort of precedence that was set at the beginning of the film where when they were going to, integrate the songs from the book, like it almost had this like serious tone and like just this like serious tone to them. Like I remember the original song back at the beginning of the movie, by the Dwarves, and that's awesome. And then you just kind of like have this sort of serious tone set throughout the movie, and then you just kind of have this weird great goblin songs. And like, although it is in the book, I agree with you, Joe, like that's good.
It just pulled you out of the film a little bit.
It didn't pull me out, but it was just like, the reason why it didn't pull me out is because you have great acting and you have like, it's like a sandwich. Like you have the great stuff around it, and then you just got this corny great goblin. But like the great goblin just I didn't like him. But it's okay. But Bilbo actually becomes separated from the dwarves and falls into a crevice where he encounters...
Not Smeagol.
Go ahead, Justin. I know you could do an impression.
It's Gollum for sure. He falls with another orc, and the orc is down there, almost dead. Goblin is pretty much dead, and Bilbo falls in the middle of some mushrooms, it looks like, and he's hiding and watching, and then you just hear the creature Gollum coming towards both of them, and he finds this Gollum on the ground, goblin on the ground, not Gollum on the ground, goblin on the ground, and cannibalistically takes him away, pretty much, and you just hear the noises that ring in your in your soul of what Gollum is, what Smeagol is. You hear that.
It's not just cannibalistically, it is cannibalism. Like
he begins to, just like all the other characters in this film, apparently when they eat they want to sing. He begins to sing on the top of a rock about killing this guy and then eating him, pretty much. It's great, but in the midst of that, something falls out of Gollum's pocket, which happens to be a very powerful ring. Spoilers.
What?
And the weight of it is throughout that film, that weight of boom when it hits the ground, the weight of this powerful ring, even though it's something small, it holds that. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that a lot in the near future through these episodes, but that ring just falls out of his pocket and he doesn't realize it, and Bilbo does.
Yeah, Bilbo sees it fall.
Yeah.
He goes,
and
shiny.
Joe, introduction of Gollum, what you got?
Done really well. Again, lived up to what I expected from the books. And I'm so thankful that I was able to read these before I saw the film, so I have something to reference back to before any of it existed. My imagination. I love what Peter Jackson did. I think that he nailed it. I like believing that other people obviously had the same reactions that I did, or had the same visions that I had while reading the books. The introduction to him, the lake down under the mountain, the really dark place when we meet Gollum. I never knew what to really expect when reading it, but he's how I pictured him. Mm-hmm. Really like skin and bones and super pale because he doesn't go out into the light.
100%.
The giant orb-like eyes, everything. They just nailed it for me. Mm-hmm. And for what he is, he's so convincing. And we can thank Andy Serkis for that. Dude's unbelievable actor, voice actor, both. And he embodies who Gollum is. And then he just gives us the best that we could ever ask for on screen. I loved the intro of him.
I mean, guys, I'm just going to say it. This is the best scene in the whole movie. Like, just the interaction between Gollum and Martin Freeman's Bilbo. I love this scene. The riddle game that they play, Andy Serkis's, just portrayal of Gollum. Like, I love all this. And then you have just like the ring to rule them all, in the middle of this whole scene, and you just have Bilbo playing games, and that's why there's awesome other scenes that come very close to this. And there's cool action scenes, there's cool set pieces, like even the Stone Giants. That's probably maybe my second favorite scene. But like this here, just the interaction between two brilliant actors and them just playing a game, like that is what's really cool, because the stakes are high. Bilbo knows that he is going to get eaten if he does not win this. Gollum knows that he has kind of an ace in the hole with this golden ring. And so the stakes are just so high, and then just he unknowingly drops it. Bilbo has it. He says, "What's in my pocket?" It's like, I love this scene. I just love this scene, and that's why it's my favorite scene, because I thought it was just brilliantly acted, and the stakes are high. So
yes. Also, Bilbo's a cheater. Can we acknowledge that? Is that fair? Bilbo I mean, Gollum was going to cheat too, because he was going to kill him anyways, but Bilbo broke the rules of the game.
There was no rules. Really?
There was no rules established, and Bilbo gave him 3 guesses. Like, also, he did allow that.
4.
Gollum said, "Ask me a question, not a riddle." So he asked him a question, and then he gave him extra guesses, and he actually got 4. Yes. I feel like this was a good scene also because you first see, this is your first view of Gollum and Smeagol fighting each other inside of the same body, because you have them communicating with each other. Yeah. And one of the funniest moments take place is when they're talking to each other, and Bilbo's like, "I didn't say anything." He's like, "I wasn't talking to you." Like, it's just funny.
Yes. Behind the rock, he retreats unto himself to have a conversation with himself. It's very well done.
Yeah. All right, so all the while that this is happening, the dwarves are running away from the orcs. And so, like I said, you have these...
no, you mean
goblins.
The orcs on the
goblins
outside.
are right. No, goblins are right. You're right. Sorry, goblins first, then orcs. But they're running away from the goblins, and like I said, this is some really good set pieces. They ride like this... this platform as like a surfboard, like down the mountain, and then they finally get to a place where they're actually very close to Bilbo and very close to Gollum. They're running through this tunnel, and Bilbo is invisible because he has put on the ring in order to escape Gollum, and Bilbo kind of like runs out to join the dwarves. He doesn't yet take the ring off because I think he's still trying to get away from Gollum. Yeah. But
at this point, Gollum's actually in front of him, right at the entrance to join them.
Mm-hmm. But here, Joe is correct. The Great Goblin does reveal, that the dwarf, he does tell the orcs, Azog, who is an orc war chief who killed Thror and lost his forearm to Thorin in battle outside the Dwarven kingdom Moria, has placed a bounty on Thorin's head. So all of that is to say that the goblins have communicated with the orcs, and what do they call them? They call them the white orc, right? Or the pale orc, something like that.
It's white.
But Azog is there with his posse of other orcs going to chase him. And here's some good scenes to follow as well. Go ahead, Joe.
Debatable. I enjoyed it. I think that there was a lot of weight that we kind of missed with Bilbo and the ring. I'm going to touch back on that for just a second.
Yes.
As Bilbo wins his challenge, and Gollum still tries to kill him because he thinks he cheated and he wants to eat the fat hobbitses. He falls, and the ring falls on his finger, and it's accurate to the book and kind of what happens to Frodo. But that's Bilbo's experience first. And he doesn't know that he's invisible at first. He only realizes that after Gollum comes in, doesn't see him right in front of him. And then in the book, they do a really good job with the buttons coming loose. And I think they did a really good job with that in the movie as well, because that's a big part of the story, is as he's squeezing out of this crack, getting away from Gollum escaping, he loses all the buttons on his coat. And throughout the story, his coat and the buttons were kind of a big deal. So I love that they added that, and that's just for us fans who read the story and also vibed with that. But it was a huge thing to escape Gollum, to get the ring, to understand its power, and then he gets out of the mountain just behind the dwarves, a couple minutes behind them, and what Gandalf puts it, out of fire, or out of the pan into the fire, out of the frying pan into the fire. Out of the fire into the furnace. How does it go? But anyways,
I don't even know.
I want to add one little thing here as well. When he is breaking free or getting out of Gollum's grasps, invisibly, he does have Sting up to Gollum's neck, and this kind of shades back on what Gandalf told him, is being a hero isn't knowing when to take a life, but when to spare one. And this is the first chance that you see that, really, of not Frodo, but Bilbo choosing to spare Gollum's life and jumping over him instead. I feel like that was really powerful for the character development of Bilbo himself. And continue, Joe.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's a huge thing, because that's a key point to Gollum's existence, is being spared.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't get the final scene of the original trilogy unless Gollum is there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
it's a huge deal. Thank you for touching on that. And so out of the pan into the fire, they escape the goblins after a ton of work, being trapped for several hours, almost dying and being eaten, and all this stuff. And immediately, boom! Hey, you're being pursued by orcs, Azog, and the white orc, and all of this history, boom, that Thorin has had and the dwarves have had, right there, right back with them, and they're running for their lives again, seemingly with no possible means of escape from wargs and orcs.
Yeah. So the dwarves and Gandalf, and now Bilbo has rejoined them, which again, as you are talking about the weight of the ring, Bilbo puts it back in his pocket, and Gandalf I feel like he senses it there, or at least that they show that he senses that something is different with Bilbo, that he's, he's seen a certain power. Like, it just kind of, and that is weighty in and of itself, because Gandalf knows what this ring is. I mean, this ring has been talked about in previous scenes, like it's something that, if in the wrong hands, it's the end of life as they knew it. So, but yeah, anyway, they are being chased by all the orcs. They are trapped at the edge of this mountain. They're all climbed into trees. The orc dogs are trying to climb up there.
Wargs.
Wargs?
Yeah, wargs.
Yeah.
Right,
orc dogs. I like it.
I like it. The orc dogs, Fido over there is trying to climb a tree, and Gandalf, I like this scene. He kind of like blows a fire into these huge pine cones, and kind of throws them all over to the dwarves, and they're like throwing them at the orcs, and they kind of have this clear kind of boundary, but Thorin does something kind of really stupid. He's like, in order to escape, I'm going to have to go fight this guy. I've already chopped off his arm, so I think I should be good, right? And lo and behold, like, Thorne's just completely outmatched, outweighed, like, and then what happens?
We have the moral and mental fortitude of Bilbo going leaps and bounds above what anyone thought he was capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And Bilbo sees Thorne in trouble and, you know, sacrifices essentially, his self to save Thorne. He runs and jumps in front of the other orc, and it wasn't Azog, it was the other one, who was about to try and behead Thorin, blocking his blade with Sting, hitting him out the way. Like, what a scene. And the entire time, you don't know if Bilbo's even capable of this. They do a really good job showing him as, like, being a little bit wary of everything, of danger, of all this stuff. And all of his self-talk has been pretty doubtful up to this point of, like, I don't know if I can. I don't think I could. Like, I'm really just like, I'm comfortable in my house. I want to go back there and all this stuff. And, you know, when he's, you know, back's put up to a wall or a cliff in this case, and he sees his friend in trouble, he runs full tilt, no thoughts about anything else, and he sacrifices himself. He throws himself in front of a blade.
Yeah.
And thankfully he doesn't die, because the story would end quite abruptly. But
that would be an unexpected end.
Yes. But no, what an awesome thing. I really enjoyed that scene, and it brought back a lot of what we missed from all of the rest of it, where they kind of leave out all of his accomplishments of his growth. They do a wonderful job showing, okay, he is growing on this journey. He is learning. He is understanding. And they do it in a masterful way. I really liked that scene.
And even throughout that, you've got some of the company falling out of the tree, and Gandalf feeling like all hope is lost. You know, they're gonna be killed. And Gandalf does something that we've seen before as well. He mutters to a butterfly, and the butterfly flies away. And throughout all this Bilbo action, what comes to save them? Regals. Eagles just soar in like always and pick up Thorin and pick up the good guys out of the tree, catch them from falling, pick up Gandalf, pick up Bilbo, and just start tearing these wargs to pieces, picking them up and chucking them over hills.
Orc dogs.
Yeah, wolf dogs.
Orc dogs.
Enter
the worst part of any Lord of the Rings Hobbit thing ever. The eagles should not exist, dude. They should not exist. They ruin the story. They make everything pointless, and I hate them so much.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is people who are not very good fans of it, they see it as, why didn't they just use eagles the whole time? They didn't fly there. They just walked. Yeah. Well, you know, it's the storytelling. It's what it is. Maybe the eagles are busy most of the time, and they can only be called once per long rest. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, once per leg. So they save Gandalf off the tower. They save the dwarven company off the cliff. They keep showing up, and they if they didn't exist, everything would have more weight, right? If there wasn't this magic giant bird that's just gonna swoop in and save the day.
So Joe, you're telling me that you've seen the How It Should Have Ended of the Lord of the Rings.
Yes, I have seen that.
You know, the more
look at that, fly over, drop the ring. Wow, done. That's the story.
The more I think about it, you know, it's almost like D&D, and that's like one of his moves that he needs a long rest for, because we barely see him sleep, and Gandalf sleeps maybe twice in the original trilogy, and he only uses this ability twice. So I feel like this is one of his powers that he needs a long rest for, and he's not taking sleep.
You know what, Justin? Although I agree with Joe, the immersion level is definitely changed when you have eagles, but I really, really want to give you kudos for just thinking about that and enjoying the movie the way that you want to enjoy it. I really like that, and that's what this is all about. Because hey, whether you want to or not, Joe, to believe it or not, the Eagles saved these dudes. They get onto like this huge, like kind of statue sort of thing, this like huge mountain. The Eagles drop them off there, and in the midst, they do see the lonely mountain in the distance. And here is also where Thorin, who has been knocked out, he is unconscious. He does wake back up after the Eagles drop him down, and Thorin, who has been the least likely person to show any support for Bilbo, finally changes his mind.
It was a good scene.
Yeah, it was a very good scene.
You guys tear up at all?
Nah.
You tear up? No tears.
I think I did the first time
When he
I
hugged him
watched
and
it.
he said, "Never could I be more wrong."
Yeah. You know. Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it cuts to the Lonely Mountain, where Smaug is awoken by a thrush knocking a snail against a stone. That's yeah. But he's still sleeping when we get to him in the second movie. So, listeners, stay tuned for our review of the second movie that will be coming out next week. We are going to be trying our best to do a weekly release of all these movies. And so, before we go, we are going to rate our movie. And if you have not listened to us recently, I believe it was our very last episode, we have changed our ranking system. So, 5 is for amazing, 4 is for great, 3 is for good, 2 is for okay, and 1 is for bad. And if we do want to comment on whether it is a must-watch or an avoid movie, we will do so afterwards. So, Joe.
No, not me first. Don't come to me first, I'm thinking.
So, Justin, what is your ranking of The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey?
No decimals.
Nah, it's got to be a whole number.
Yeah, whole number.
Okay, so I'm gonna go 4. I'm gonna go 4.
Great. Okay.
4 is good. I do think that if you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings, this is a must watch if you haven't already. It's worth a second watch just to see if their view changes, because it does. You pick up on more things and you see the details that Peter Jackson put in there. I feel like must watch if you're a fan of D&D or Lord of the Rings or any kind of fantasy. It's a good ride. It's a good story if you can handle the singing. And if you're not a fan of Lord of the Rings, it's still a good film. It'll keep your attention, but I don't think by any means it's a 5.
Mm-hmm. Joe, would you like me to go next?
Please, yeah.
Okay. So I am a 4 as well on this. I do think that a little bit of foreshadow. I don't know if I'll go any higher for the rest of the Hobbit trilogy. But we'll see. Maybe our discussion about the second movie will sway my opinion. But this one I think is great. I think that this is great just on Ian McKellen and Martin Freeman alone. Like, just those two people really make this movie for me. Just the amazing scene, the banter that you have between the dwarfs, the awesome set pieces. I really think that this is the best of the trilogy for The Hobbit. Again, we're talking Lord of the Rings aside here. This is just the Hobbit trilogy here. So I really enjoyed this movie. It was a fun rewatch. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and I'm glad that we're reviewing all these movies. So, Joe, now you have no choice. You are our last panelist.
I know, and I've had time. So I'm going with a 3. I think it's good. Okay. This will also be the highest ranked one for me. I'm going with 3 good, and I have 2 caveats. I do believe that if you're a fan, you should watch. If you're a fan of the books or the movies, you should watch. However, the caveats are, if you start, you're going to feel like you have to watch all 3 of them. Don't. Also, if you do watch all 3 of them, understand that it is not the book. So if you can understand that this is not the book, and if you can power through all 3 of them, I think that this is a good movie, bordering on great. The only reason I marked it lower is because there's 2 more after it. And yeah.
Yeah, I think this movie is the one out of the trilogy that stands on its own. I think this is the one that really is the good, the great out of this trilogy.
Yes.
I think I would be, I would assume, and I would hope that I would be correct in this, but you will see some amazings when we get to the original Lord of the Trilogy from us, or Lord of the Rings trilogy.
It is a pretty good trilogy. It might be the Lord of the Trilogy.
Yeah. Just stay tuned for all that. Hey, that has been our Unexpected Journey review. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go ahead and leave us a review on podcatchers of choice. If you want to follow us on social media at What the Fun Pod on both Twitter and Facebook. For Joe, it's JoeBorder21 on Twitter. Justin is RubberDuck_2500 on Twitter. I am Stay at Home Gamer with the O in home being a 0 on Twitter as well. Follow us there. And that is our review of the first Hobbit. So we'll see you next time for The Desolation of Smaug. For Joe, for Justin, my name is Mike. This has been What the Fun Show. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
What's the cool, the juicy sweet? I only wish to catch a fish and cat.
Spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning.
I was listening to, what was I listening to? I was listening to one of our reviews on my way down to Chicago, and my mom was in there with me, and she heard our spoiler warning, and she laughed. She liked it.
Nice. Winning.
All right.